You found the Backup Wrap-Up, your go-to podcast for all things backup, recovery, and cyber recovery. In this episode, we're talking about some research that some folks did into password managers. A new paper out of Zurich took a look at LastPass, Bitwarden, and Dashlane, and they found some pretty significant vulnerabilities in their core architecture. Not bad code or sloppy programming, but actually a fundamental design flaw. I'm still a fan, by the way, but you need to understand what these vulnerabilities are, why they exist, and what you should be doing right now to protect yourself. We also talk about passkeys and whether or not they're actually the answer to this problem. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I've been passionate about backup and recovery ever since I had to tell my boss that there were no backups of the production database that we had just lost. I don't want that to happen to you, and that's why I do this. On this podcast, we turn unappreciated admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap-Up. Welcome to the Backup Wrap-Up. I'm your host, W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I have with me a guy that seems to remember my podcast better than me, Prasanna Malayandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
I'm good. This is why you keep me around, Curtis, is so I can remember all these things.
There are no other reasons to keep you around.
I'm like your second brain. You know how they talk about AI, and AI is going to be your second brain, or your doppelganger, and be able to replace you, your digital twin. That's a better word.
I would really like to see you pass as me, sir. I just want to see. By the way, there's a bumper sticker for you.
I've seen that one before.
Have you seen it? Okay.
Yes, I have. And you have one more too.
First of all, I'm a delight, and it has a possum.
But so for people who may not realize, we also do video. So if you go to YouTube, search for the Backup Wrap-Up, you can actually see us and what Curtis is drinking. Show people your mug that you got for your birthday.
It's my mug that I got for my birthday, which is I saw, I forgot what I was doing. I went back. I got distracted. When did I turn 60? Yeah. Is this my cup? What's going on? I have to pee. By the way, I'm having to read this,
which is perfect
for the record. On my side, I have to read this backwards. I'm able to read. I just thought that was important to distinguish. So
what are we going to talk about today?
Once again, we talk a lot on this show about password managers, and I do think good, better, best. Right? We talk a lot about good, better, best, and we say that you should have a password manager, and then there's always there's always that one person in the crowd that's like, well, what if the password manager gets hacked? And that's what they sound like to me. And I and with one exception, what I used to say was I don't know anyone. I know plenty of people that got hacked because they didn't have a password manager, but I didn't know anyone who ever got hacked because they had a password manager. Now I know a handful of people because of what happened to LastPass a couple of years ago. Was that a couple of years ago?
I think it was a couple of years.
A couple of years ago at this point, yeah. Where it had to do with backups, right? Where they had hard coded the password. They had hard coded a password, and that allowed some people to get in, and then that allowed them access to the encrypted vaults, which they then did brute force attacks against, right? And they were able to get into some, especially older vaults that use some older encryption and stuff. And so I'm still even after the thing that we're going to talk about today, I'm still a strong proponent, and I know that our regular guest, my co-author, Dr. Mike Saylor, co-author of this little book right here,
the book that's up in that corner,
Response and Recovery. I know he also is a big fan of password managers. And as we're going to cover in this episode, the password managers, I think, are the best option for the current, to deal with all of the legacy technology that we have, but still moving forward. I think we all agree that FIDO compliant passkeys are definitely the current best option for the future. For now, but it does require change on your part. And I think if you take nothing away from this episode, go do passkeys anywhere you can, anywhere it matters.
But but but
Um,
but but but
Go
but
ahead.
but I don't think pass keys will replace the issue that we are about to talk about with password managers, because you could still use password managers that support pass keys,
Uh,
like Dashlane, as an
yeah,
example, supports passkey.
but
So I
but
don't,
I
but I think though passkey itself is tied to a device, so that makes it more secure
yeah,
than a
yeah.
generic
I
password.
think that's the thing with passkeys that make it
Yeah.
different. So I'm even though with your once again giving me why I'm wrong. I stand by my
Yes,
original
I just
statement.
wanted to make sure it's a clarification. Passkeys are great, but passkeys does not mean password managers are not required. Passkeys help alleviate the issue about stolen credentials.
Yes, right. Okay. So what are we talking about, Prasanna? What started
I
this
want
whole
to
thing?
talk about your book or coffee cup. That coffee cup was pretty awesome. No, but okay. So today, right, like Curtis said, we always talk about password managers. We've even had, I think he was a researcher from the University of York on
Yeah,
the podcast. I want to say like 3 years ago, who actually did an analysis of various password managers and found 6 vulnerabilities. So, like, password managers are not some magical thing that's like bulletproof and secure all the time, right? It's constantly being tested and validated to make sure there are no vulnerabilities that allow exposure of your credentials, especially because people put important things in their password manager, including the password for their crypto wallets.
right.
So,
And
right.
as we
So it
know from
is,
the guy that accidentally threw away his crypto wallet, uh, that would be really important. The
yes,
password to the crypto
exactly.
wallet. Yeah.
And so recently, an article came out from, I think it's been circling the web,
Hmm.
but it was I think it's a research institute in Zurich,
Hmm.
ETH Zurich, I want to say, that looked and came back and was like, hey, we took three of the most popular password managers, LastPass, Bitwarden, and Dashlane, and we analyzed it to figure out like what vulnerabilities exist. And they came back with the list of vulnerabilities, which they're saying we're not sort of like what people normally think about when they think like, hey,
Right.
your software is exposed, but it was like fundamental issues in architecture of these password managers, which could lead to your passwords being compromised and things like that. Is that a fair
Right.
statement?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's and the issue that they said, as I understand it, basically this and they said this isn't a matter of bad coding. This was more a fundamental issue with the concept of the vault model, right? Where you've got this vault, and the the server up there doesn't ever know your password, right? It only knows the vault, the encrypted vault, right? Which let's just talk about how this
You,
works,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Let's actually talk
So
about that. Yeah,
yeah,
like
so you have a password manager, and then when you authenticate a new device, because the whole concept of a password manager, I have a password manager, you have a password manager,
yep,
right? um, i I want to be able to use that password manager both on this laptop, my other I
your
have
phone.
another laptop which is a laptop I like to close. Because it's got an open window on it, so I like to close windows whenever I can. But and then it's my, it's
Your
my
phone.
Windows
Your phone.
my Windows laptop, my phone, right, and any other random device that I
Yeah.
might need to use. I want to not I don't want to have to email passwords around. I don't want to have to copy and paste between platforms, right? And so I want to have the same password manager in multiple places, which means that there does need to be some centralized communication, and we need to be um, sending the passwords back and forth, because I'm going to change the password on my Mac, and then an hour later, maybe even 5 minutes later, I might want to use that same password on my phone.
Yeah.
Which means that that password needs to be sent up and then back down to the device, which means that we're sending passwords around now. And it
Well, you're
means
not sending
that,
passwords,
well,
but
you're sending encrypted
yeah.
versions of
Yes.
the password, right? And it never sees the unencrypted version of your password, which is really important. That it's only
And how is that done?
it's which
How are they able to share this information without them ever seeing the unencrypted version of your passwords?
Yeah, so there's going to be a password that only you use on your local device that is used to unencrypt or decrypt the password on your local device. And
I am
it's
Mr.
going,
Backup and I am awesome.
what?
Is that your
Oh,
password?
actually, my password is I'm kind of a big deal. That's my password. Um, the you made me lose my train of thought. So there's a local password that is sort of your password. It's your one password. In fact, one of the password managers, the name of the password manager is 1Password, because you just have to remember one password, and then that password is used to locally unencrypt your data, and it's going to unencrypt that password for that moment. And it's when it's encrypting it, it's going to use a long key as well as some salt. And again, this is I'm going to say this is definitely where I start to get on the edge of my knowledge, but modern password encryption is going to encrypt it both with your key as well as some salt. That is going to make it super
because
hard for someone without
yeah,
that to decrypt.
because yeah, like you said, you don't want anyone to be able to access, even the vendor you're using for your password
Right.
manager, to be
Right.
able to decrypt that password, right? Because you're the only one who knows it, and it should only stay local.
And this is true even in the case of like when you're using the Chrome version of the password manager, the vault is stored locally and you're decrypting locally, right?
Yeah.
So that the password is never the unencrypted password is never stored or sent anywhere other
Yeah.
than when you're copying and pasting or automated pasting into the device that you're logging into.
Yep.
But there is this concept of a vault, right? And that is think of it as a little mini database that has the copy of all of your passwords and other interesting information, right? Like I've got numbers that I seem to need a lot, right? Like my bank account number and
Mhm.
the federal ID of my LLC, right?
Yeah.
It's not
It's
a
basically
number
like
that's
a
in.
notes field that you can just
Yeah,
throw
yeah,
other
I have a
things in there as
secure
well.
notes and
Yeah.
like I know my social security number, but I don't know that number because it's a
Yeah.
number that I don't use very often, right? And so important things like that. And like persona's pant size, for example, I store that in there just because I want to know.
Creepy.
What?
Creepy.
Creepy. Yeah. So, the uh and so you keep a lot of stuff in there, right? Also I have all my credit cards in there, right? There's a and so that allows me when I'm using Amazon and other apps, it allows me to say no, don't save my credit card, I'm going to give you my credit card each time, and it'll just copy and paste the credit card in there. And so again, it's trying to find a balance between security and convenience. As we know, they are always at war. Why do we say that?
Because if you make something so difficult to use, even if it's super secure, no one's going to use it.
Yeah.
They will have like the old school way where, hey, I need a really long password and I have to change it every 30 days. Let me just write it on a sticky note and stick it on my monitor.
Yeah. I was actually in a business the other day, and there it is,
Oh,
like
oh
all the
no.
passwords just on sticky notes on the monitor, and it hurt my little heart. Um, it was a business that I was advising, and I advise them to stop that.
Yeah.
It's like, first thing we're going to talk about is those sticky notes. And it wasn't even like the way the person had their monitor was like sideways. So like anybody that comes into their office can see the sticky notes, you know. Anyway, I digress. But yeah. So I think about and sometimes we err too far one side or the other. I can think of a time where I worked with a very large company, large company. Now, again, this is going back 27 years. And I worked with a very large company that absolutely everyone listening to this podcast
would know,
probably does business with.
Yeah.
And we used to RSH as root from server to server anywhere.
Yeah.
Without a password.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Just to quote somebody that I know you and I watch on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. But the other thing, though, is you talked about usability versus security. Even in your case, I'm sure there are times when you have a password that you want to share with your wife.
Yeah. Well,
right.
For the record, we use the same password manager.
I'm just saying, but
okay.
Yes, right. You want to share, and so how would you do it today? You either give them the password and they write it down somewhere, or you have to email it or text it or some mechanism, which is also insecure.
Yeah.
Or do you just rely on your password manager, which probably has a share this password with someone else link?
Yeah. We decided we were tired of both paying for the same password manager. We just put all the passwords in there. That doesn't work if you don't trust your spouse, by the way. But there was something, darn it, there was something that you said that triggered, you were talking about
usability, security.
I don't know. But yeah, just in general, you know, if you make it so secure that it's difficult to use, then no one's going to use it, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, you end up being less secure, right? Yeah. Which is why I'm more of a fan of really secure passwords that are in a password manager versus we're going to force you to change your password every 30 days, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with changing your passwords. The problem is that it's just a lot of work for, I don't know, a little bit of whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why that's the model that they've come up with, which is referred to as what did they call this model? Isn't
it the encrypted vault?
No, there's another one. It's the zero knowledge encryption, right?
Oh yeah.
The zero knowledge encryption model is basically the best way that they came up of storing and sharing a password between multiple devices. But it does have just that concept. This is what I gleaned from the article, is that core concept has some vulnerabilities in it, starting with the idea that there has to be some kind of trust because, stop, let me back up. One of the reasons that it has one of the core vulnerabilities is that it needs to be, and this is a usability issue, there needs to be a way for you to recover your vault. We talked about this. You may remember another previous episode when we had the lady who, she said, "What do I do when I lose everything?" Hopefully I'll get a link to that episode. That was an interesting discussion. She's like, "What do I do when I lose everything?" And so you do need to go through that exercise. What is the exercise that's needed to get back into your password vault if you get locked out of all of your devices or there's a fire or something, right? You need this process, because otherwise your life would become a living hell. If you, I have I'm not kidding, I have 500 passwords in my password manager. I can't imagine what it would be like to recover all of those and authenticate
one by one.
So you need some ability to recover that, but that means that when you're in this vulnerable position, you need to trust the this
The vendor.
server, the
Yeah.
vendor. Well, you need to trust an entity. It
Yes.
may or may not be you need to trust the vendor, but the point is you're trusting an entity that you can't see,
Yes.
right? And so what I saw was them exploiting that core vulnerability. It's like it's a core design flaw, right? That I don't, and I think the point was there's really no way around it, right?
Well, unless you basically say, I'm never going to allow a password reset from the server side.
Which would be a no starter, which would be a non-starter for most people, right?
But why?
Because they would.
So
I'm just saying from a commercial viability. I know.
well,
let me go back. One of the things that we say is that if you have like, if you, let me, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? So if, for example, you have a backup encryption, and if you lose the key, your vendor says, "Oh, we'll just fix it for you." That's not a good answer.
Yes.
Right. That's kind of what you're talking about. Is that they're
it's a back. No, I don't want to say backdoor. It's too harsh.
Yeah. Well, but I think backdoor is fine. Right. All right. I got a story. I was consulting. This is like, I don't know, 5 companies ago, and we had we got an email from a former employee. It was a consulting company. It was a former consultant that used to work for our company, and the client was like financial trading firm, Wall Street type company. And he emailed us and said, "Hey, the firewall on Umpty Squat company was throwing up some errors, and so I logged in and fixed them." I'm sorry, what? He had a back door that he had left open so he could help us out. We're like, okay. Let us work on the offboarding process. Yes. But you want, I'd say this is definitely a difference between the commercial password management type concept and encryption management concept and a consumer grade password manager.
But I agree with all that. In fact, I think in that prior podcast episode, we actually recommended the person to go look to see if recovery keys are supported that they can generate and mail it to someone across the country.
Yes, it's exactly what we talked about, right?
Right. And so that's one mechanism. I think, though, even though you just mentioned, Curtis, consumer versus like enterprise from security, all of like, even if you look at the vulnerabilities they talk about, that's even available for or it's even possible in organizations too, because of sort of the auto enrollment and the fact that you have a administrator in an organization who might need to reset the passwords because their employee forgets.
Right.
And that, I think, is still exploitable, and it's not necessarily consumer level, but it's just like the issues of dealing with an organization, right? Your users are going to forget things. They go on vacation, they come back, they forget. They're like, oh, I can't get in. And so there's this level of security that they need to be able to build in because they need that password reset functionality.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is what they, so as I understand, what they did was they impersonated the server, right?
Yes.
So, what that would allow them to, if they impersonated the server, again, this is what we were saying, you need to trust this entity. And so you're reaching out to reset your vault, to reset the password of your vault, or not to reset the password, but to recover your vault. So you have to reach out to this entity. You have to trust it to a certain amount, and you give it your password in order to or you give it your recovery key in order to authenticate yourself. and then then it can do what it does. But the point is that it could then take that recovery key and recover your vault without you, I
Yeah.
guess, is the idea of what they talked about here,
Yeah.
that core
Yeah.
concept.
And like in the organization case, you could auto enroll. It's not just your own password that gets used, right, as the encryption, but also the organization, because they need to be able to access that recovery key as well.
Right.
And so now you have two sources that can access your key, and it's no longer, I would say, it's still zero. What did you call it? Zero encryption? No,
Zero knowledge encryption,
zero
ZKE.
knowledge encryption, but it's someone in your organization who has that knowledge, not the server or the vendor.
What would be interesting, I know that what they did, the researchers, they reached out to the password managers, as good researchers should do, reach out to the password managers to allow them to try to address these core, this core vulnerability, right? And again, it's kind of an edge case, because it only, the thing that we talked about, it only would work if you're trying to reset, you're trying to
Yeah.
recover your password manager, and they were able to impersonate the server at that moment. So I think it's a very edge case, right?
Yeah.
But I know that the password managers in question said that they were working on addressing these vulnerabilities. It'd be interesting to see what they have done
Yeah.
towards that end.
So that was kind of like one category of vulnerabilities. I think another was sort of just the nature of encrypted vaults,
Mm-hmm.
because unlike a file which then gets encrypted with a single key, what they're doing is they're sort of having entries and fields within those entries that may get encrypted in different ways, and they're not just sort of going through and encrypting the
Yeah,
entire
it's like
vault.
row level encryption in a database, if you will, which then you've
Yeah.
got metadata that's above that, which is not encrypted, right?
Which may or may not be encrypted. And then
Yeah.
even there, it looks like, from what I could tell, there's no strong verification that you're not able to switch around fields within your encrypted vault to be able to expose things. So I think in one example, they talked about taking your username and password and moving the ciphertext from those particular fields into a different field, like the
Mm-hmm.
URL, which
Mm-hmm.
could then expose part of your password potentially,
Mm.
depending on the password manager. And so, and there's no check to say, is the vault still the same as what it was initially?
Right. And again, these are features that they could add, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing where they could add that feature, and maybe that's what. And again, it would be interesting to see how they've responded. And at least one, as I've said before, I am not a fan of LastPass based on multiple issues that have happened in the past. To me, it just doesn't seem like they put the right emphasis on, again, usability versus security. I don't think that they appear to not put the right emphasis on
Yeah.
the security
You
part.
know, one big takeaway I had from the paper, though, I don't know
Sure.
if you caught it, but they looked at three password managers,
Uh-huh.
right? Bitwarden, LastPass, and Dashlane,
Yeah.
right? Do you know what the number of users are across these three products?
What?
There are 60 million users and 23% of the market,
And what's your point with that?
which
Is that
means that
more or
a
less?
quarter million people are
Yeah.
using password managers. Sorry, a quarter billion
Oh.
people are using password managers.
Oh, that's interesting. I never even. So okay. So you took they said that these three were this many, and then that's 25% of the market, and then you extrapolated that to mean that there's a quarter of a billion people that are using password managers, which
Yep.
means that the vast majority of people in the world are not using
Because I
password managers.
because I know we always ask that question, right? How many people are
Yeah.
using password managers? So maybe it might be a little off, but it shouldn't be like a magnitude off, you know?
Right. Right. That is actually a really interesting. Yeah, I like that. I wonder how many people are. I think the vast majority of people, like, we're going to say non nerds, non-security focused people, they probably just use Chrome, right? They probably just use the saved passwords in Chrome or Edge or Firefox or whatever, right?
So there's also a number on that too.
Okay.
So Google and Apple's built-in password managers account for 55% of the market.
Of the 250 million?
Yes.
Well, that's depressing. So they're counting those as password managers.
Yes.
Huh. Because I don't really count. I mean, it's, again, that's the good, better, best. It's better than nothing, but not much better.
Well, I should also caveat this by saying that these are coming from two different surveys and studies. So the Google and Apple one is coming from a survey of 1,000 US consumers, right? Versus the other one is coming from the actual 60 million number we talked about earlier, is coming from a different set of studies and surveys.
Okay.
So it may not be apples to compare them.
Or
but
apples to Androids.
Yes, apples to Androids, if you wish. But it still at least gives you some relative numbers, you know?
Yeah. So I think, again, I think that the takeaway from this episode, I would, you know what, I would reach out to if your password manager, well, you know, if your password manager is on this or not, I would reach out to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? You know, what's your response to this article? What are you doing to address this core sort of fundamental question, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if the other password managers who were not part of this initial investigation are already publishing some FAQ or something in response.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, agreed. That would be one thing to do, is to contact your password manager, especially if it's one of these three, to say, hey, it says that you're working on stuff. What are you working on? Right. I know I use one of the three, so I'm going to reach out to them. I haven't. The article just came out a couple of days ago, and I happened to see it on LinkedIn. And I will reiterate kind of what I said in the beginning. One, I'm still a fan of password managers. I still think it's better than the alternative, and I do think that it is really just a stopgap, right? Yeah. Like if we go back, it's kind of like target side deduplication, if I will, if I can, if I must, whatever.
I can't believe you are.
So target side deduplication is stupid, right? And I know that, you know, that there's some giant companies that make a lot of money on target side deduplication. What's target side deduplication, Prasanna?
Target side dedupe is where you send the data over, and in the storage system, you figure out what all the duplicates are, and then you dedupe it down before writing it to disk.
Right. So you're deduping at the target as opposed to deduping at the source, right? And it's dumb, but I'm saying it's dumb, and I'll say why it's dumb. And I stand by the statement, because again, I think this is very. This really is a great parallel here, because it's dumb, but it's still better than what we had before, right? Mm-hmm. So why do I say it's dumb? It's dumb because your backup software is still pretending like it's writing to tape, for God's sakes, and it's sending full backups and full file incrementals, and we're sending all of that across the LAN, and then we're going to do the magic on the other end. We're getting storage efficiency. We're getting no network efficiency, right? If you could switch to source side deduplication, you get both storage and network efficiency, and also less work on the client. Hang on, I'll finish. Okay. I'll bring it home. But it does require an architectural change, right? It does require you to change out your backup software, or it requires your backup software to make a major architectural change. That's why I'm saying it's a great parallel to here, right? I think that passkeys are definitely better, but we're still in the early phases of adoption of passkeys. I know I'm still in the early phases of passkey adoption, and I still find it kind of weird and annoying, because it is tied to the device. So it's like, do I want to do this passkey? I can only do the passkey on my phone or the passkey on my Mac. I can't share
you
them
can't
because
log in
they're
across.
tied to the device. The passkey is tied to the device by design, right?
Then does your password manager support multiple passkeys for the same account or the same website?
Yeah, well, but they're stored locally. You know what I mean?
But the vault is stored is encrypted.
Yeah, I don't even know. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're still in the early phases. We're still in the early phase. I'm trying to go to passkeys when I can, but also here. So here, I'll tell you where passkeys are driving me crazy, and that's logging into QuickBooks. Okay, QuickBooks says, "Hey, do you want to log in with a passkey, or do you want to log in with that stupid old password and MFA?" And I go, "I want to log in with a passkey." And it goes, "Great, what's your passkey?" And I go, "Here's my passkey." And it says, "Hey, what's your MFA?" And I'm like, "Damn it!" Like, that's the whole reason I went with the passkey, is right? And so like and maybe that's just an implementation thing on the fact of Intuit. And just take my money. They get too much of my money. That's what I think is Intuit. It gets too much of my money. But and so I keep getting little implementation issues like that, and it's different per app, it's different per device, and I think if I'm having challenges and concerns and confusion, then Jane.
I can't imagine my parents using it.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine Lily using it, for example. As smart as she is, she's brilliant. That's my granddaughter, for those who don't. She's 12 and she's amazing. And she's, as I like to say, she's officially entered the "that's what you're wearing" phase of life.
Curtis.
But yeah, so we're still in that early sort of growing pain stage of that. But I guess what I'm saying is perhaps this gives you yet another reason why you should look into implementing passkeys. Start with like the most vulnerable things first, right? Things like QuickBooks, things like
Amazon.
Your bank. What was that?
Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon. Yeah, Amazon. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you could log into Amazon and Costco in my life, you could wreak havoc. I'm just saying. You could, next thing I know, there's 4,700 packages going to Wichita. At some point, hopefully, Amazon would be like, "Hey, Curtis, you got a new friend in Wichita?" I'd like to think that they would do that, but I don't know. But yeah, so I definitely think you should look into doing it at the really important things like banking, online shopping, bookkeeping, and again, personas, pant size. Any other takeaways for you from this?
No, I agree. I think password managers are still valuable just because, like everything, you're always going to find vulnerabilities over time, no matter what the system is, right? Things will be exposed. It's just how quickly people react. It doesn't mean stop using password managers.
Right.
You should still continue to use it because, like you said, it's better than whatever else was there before. It may not be as good as what's coming in the future, but that's not mature yet.
Right. And it'll just be, I wonder how many years we're going to continue to have to do at what point do some sites say, "Sorry, but you have to use a passkey"? Right. So I think, for example, like USAA, that's a credit union that I belong to, right? They, a couple of years ago, they were like, "We no longer do passwords. We now do username and PIN plus an MFA token that is generated by the semantic." We use the semantic, VIP, the semantic VIP software, right? Which is really just an MFA token. And so you need the PIN plus which I think is pretty secure, right? So you don't really, all you have to remember is the PIN. But
imagine now every single app or website you visit requires a separate MFA
oh yeah, no, I'm not.
generator.
I'm definitely not a fan of the fact that I have to use the other one. I use Authy, right? We talked about this. I use Authy as my MFA for most things, and I do that over Google Authenticator because being able to, again, security versus usability.
Yep.
I like that I can that vault I can recover with the password, but and of course I have that password in my password manager. Catch-22 situation.
Is it like Inception?
Yeah, it is. By the way, do you remember the lesson of Inception?
It's all a dream?
No, there's a technical lesson from Inception, an IT level.
No, I don't.
Lesson from Inception. If you run a VM inside a VM inside a VM, it's really slow. The downside to the free MFA software is that it's not time synchronized with the well, it is, but it's every 30 seconds. It's whereas like with the semantic VIP, the 30 seconds starts the moment you start the app. Yep. Whereas the free ones, it's just literally at every 30 seconds on the atomic clock. They're on the atomic clock, you're on the atomic clock, and they just know when the 30. So if you start it up, you'll get the timer. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just got to go use one of the MFA things. But I will say this: if you're not using MFA or passkeys on anything that matters, then you are just asking for a world of hurt. Bad. Okay, well, it's been fun, Persona.
Always is.
What's your pant size?
72.
It's not. All right, that is a wrap. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.